Hello guys, welcome back to Greg Burgess TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about count approaches and what those are. So let's get started right now. So let's start by defining what is a count approach. A count approach is when you're sitting on a specific type of pitch in a specific count. For example, most 0-0 counts, when you have 0 balls and 0 strikes on you, most pitchers throw fastballs in that count. And so as a hitter, you would be waiting for him to throw a fastball. You would be expecting that type of pitch. Therefore, you are in a count approach. If you notice that every time he gets 2 strikes on a hitter, then he throws a curveball, and you are waiting for that pitch when you get in 2 strike counts, then that is a count approach. And that is typically what players try to do. Then if they're not in specific counts, they are just kind of flailing around and hoping that they hit the ball, hoping they guess right. And what ends up happening is more times than not, you guess wrong, or you guess right and you still can't hit that pitch. So the reason I picked count approaches as really the second video that I'm doing in the series of approaches, there's going to be 5 videos. The reason I chose this one as the first category of approaches to consider is because when people think about approaches, this is typically the only approach that they consider. And part of that reason is because we see these pro guys that, they say, well, I was sitting on that pitch in that count. I was waiting for that slider. I was just waiting for him to throw a fastball. We're going to talk more about that in a bit. We're going to kind of keep that and put that into some perspective so we can understand that better. And so we as young athletes, we take that information and we say, okay, well, now I need to be able to determine which pitch is coming in what count so that I can hit that pitch, and that is the approach that I'm going to use, and that is the only approach that I'm ever going to learn or try to use. And what ends up happening is you end up guessing pitches, and it ends up not working very well for you. That approach ends up a little bit broken. So let's keep breaking this down and let's kind of unpack this a little bit so we can understand when we need to use count approaches and really how often we need to use count approaches. Guys, to put it to you bluntly, count approaches are probably the approach that you should use the least. Okay, and I know that might sound weird because you have these pro guys that are using them all the time. Also understand the guys in the pros are getting scattering reports. They're getting spray charts. They're getting all this data in a packet on all of the pitchers that they're going to face. Okay, back when I played with the Orioles, we got all these different charts and all this different data. And as much as you wanted to look at it and as much as you wanted to retain it, that was there available for you. But especially in college and below, in college you get a little bit, but in, for example, summer ball, high school ball, you get almost nothing. You kind of rely on your coach to go kind of get a scouting report, and he kind of feeds that information to you, and you hope as a player that it's correct and that your game plan will work. So keep that in perspective as you see these pro guys talking on TV about sitting on certain pitches and certain counts. They're not necessarily guessing. They're taking data and taking a mitigated risk and using that data to build their plan at the plate, build their approach. So let's talk about when should we then use count approaches, okay? A lot of times, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to pay attention to the game before the game. You're going to have to pay attention to the game when other hitters are hitting, okay? If you notice that, hey, every time a hitter goes up to the plate, that guy throws a fastball. Then when you get up to the plate, you can sit on and expect a fastball. If he changes it or if he's continuing to change that throughout the game, I wouldn't go up to the plate in a count approach expecting a fastball. I would do something different. I would have a different approach. If you notice that every 1-1 count, a pitcher is throwing a specific pitch, then you can go up to the plate and sit on that pitch. If you notice in any other specific count, he is throwing a specific type of pitch, then you can have a count approach within that count if you get into that count during your at bat. But if you are going up to the plate guessing pitches in certain counts, you are in huge trouble, okay? And I'm sure a lot of you have already experienced that. Word of advice, here's a huge tip. If you have 2 strikes, don't be in a count approach. Gather as much data as you can. As a player, that's part of your job. As a baseball player, that is part of your job, to gather data. The more data you can gather, the more data you can retain, the better plan you can come up with. That will make you more successful. Pay attention to if the coach is calling pitches or if the pitcher and catcher are calling pitches. Watch the pitcher before the game. He will tell you exactly what types of pitches he's going to throw. While he's in the bullpen, he is literally going to give signs to the catcher with his glove that will tell you what pitch he will throw. If you know he's throwing a specific pitch in a specific count, that is the only time that you want to be in a count approach. All other times, be in a different approach. So that might only happen 2-3 times a game, if ever. Personally, I don't teach my guys too much about count approaches because we're not going to use them the most. Okay, there are a lot of other approaches that we'll go over in future videos in this series that we use a whole lot more than count approaches. However, if a player is paying attention, which they should be while they are in the dugout watching the pitcher pitch, and he does notice that, hey, this pitcher in this specific count throws this pitch a lot, as long as it's not a 2-strike count, I like him to communicate that with me and with the rest of the team so that we can also know the pattern, and then we can, as a team, have a count approach within that scenario or that situation. But if you cannot pick up on a count approach, if you cannot find a pattern within the pitcher's sequence of pitches in certain counts, do not have a count approach. Do not go up to the plate trying to guess which pitch he's going to throw next, because you're going to be wrong. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Go support me on patreon.com/GregBurgessTV. There's also a link. I'll put that down in the description. Any questions, comments you have for me, would love to hear from you. Love you guys. God bless.